Hey, what's up, you guys? It's your girl Mahogany Roots here, and I'm back at you again with another video. So I decided to do some commentary on the hottest show right now, in my opinion, House of the Dragons. It is a spin-off from the very, very popular Game of Thrones. If you guys have not seen the Game of Thrones, you really got to go back and watch it. But right now we're dealing with House of the Dragons. This is episode 4, season 1, and in this episode, whoo! It gets downright down and dirty and funky, honey. So in this episode, Damon comes back. He has won the war, defeated the Crab King or whatever that dude's name is, and he's coming back very cocky and disrespectful, in his normal Damon Targaryen fashion. The brother, um, the king Valares is very forgiving. Now, I know that a lot of people have deemed this king to be a weak king. In my opinion, he's not a weak king. But he is being put through hell by both his brother and his daughter, and we'll get into that in a second. But Damon comes in, he's talking, but he somewhat humbles himself for his own advantage, of course, before the king. The king thanks him for his efforts down there, uh, reigning victorious over the Crab King, and they have a celebration. So it starts off with Rhaenyra rejecting every single suitor in the kingdom, of all ages, all sizes. This, if you've been following the series, is much to her father's agitation and stress, to be quite frank. Between her and her uncle, they are literally driving the king crazy. So she rejects every suitor, and then Damon comes swooping in. You see a dragon, and this is very symbolic of his personality. He is kind of a loose cannon. He is the villain, but I won't say that we love to hate, but you can tell he's very complicated, and we'll get to that soon. Um, so at this celebration for Damon defeating the crab feeder, you notice a weird kind of flirtatious vibe between Rhaenyra and her uncle Damien. Of course, the king is very unaware. He seems very just out of touch. He's got his eye on his brother Damien. He knows better than to trust him, but at the same time, he seems completely oblivious to the cry for help that his daughter Rhaenyra is having. Um, so backing away from that, there is some positivity in the scene. In that scene, we see Rhaenyra and her used to be best friend Alicent, who is now Queen Alicent, but we see them have a moment of kind of rekindling their friendship. I actually feel really sorry for Alicent. Alicent, when you look at things, she was a 14-year-old, 15-year-old bride. Um, and I feel her pain. She, like I said, if you guys haven't seen it, you've got to go back. But she is the second wife to the king, and the first wife died in childbirth after having several miscarriages and several stillbirths, and just being a breeder for the king, and she's been thrown in that position as a 15-year-old girl. She's already had baby number 2. She's probably barely 18 years old at this point, and she has no friends. Rhaenyra was her only friend, her best friend, and so I'm really hoping, and I'm loving the fact that they seem to be rekindling their friendship. I think this is important for both of them. All right, so in this next scene, you see the king and his council members, including Rhaenyra, discussing who Rhaenyra is to wed, and for the good of the kingdom. Right now, the kingdom is being looked at as vulnerable because the king has not announced his heir. The princess is there's no word of who she's to marry, so there's too many questions, and he feels like, and it's true, it's almost like they got a bunch of vultures around them putting pressure on them, because at any moment any of these kingdoms could rise up against him. They need to make alliances, and so from the expression on Rhaenyra's face, it's like it's finally dawning on her, okay, she cannot continue to fight this. Unfortunately, it's like she can't really fight her destiny. She's a woman child born to a king, and she has a role to play, whether she likes it or not. So you see that expression on her face at the table. And the very next scene, she goes to her quarters, which is being guarded by her knight, Christian. If you read in the books, obviously they have a relationship, but we haven't gotten that far yet. But she goes into her quarters and she finds a disguise there, obviously with the letter from Damon, and she sneaks out of her quarters. Child, this is when things really get crazy. So she sneaks out of her quarters. She meets with Damon. He takes her out into the city, which is a bunch of chaos. You have people having sex in the streets. You can tell that Rhaenyra is very excited. She's been sheltered all this time, so she is just very excited and enthused to be out of that castle. This is no doubt in my mind a plot by her uncle. The whole time my heart was racing because I'm wondering what's his scheme. At the end, we will figure out what the scheme is. But basically, several things happen. You know, she's drinking, she's around just common people, something that I'm sure she has never have ever have done. Okay. And she's really vulnerable, whether she realizes it or not, because her uncle is not to be trusted. Anyway, so this time out on the town, he takes her to brothels. They stop and see. And I noticed that this is a theme with a lot of older type, old English type. Well, this is a fantasy, but I noticed that the theme of the theater comes into play. And that's where there was a scene where they stop and there's a mock story being told of who will be the king's new heir. And of course, they're talking about her brother. They didn't mention Damon, but it's like who is going to be the new heir? And of course, the people, when they say, "Oh, it's her," the people boo. And Damon questions her about this. How do you feel about this? And she seems to disregard it as in, which I believe she even says what they think means no, never mind, which is true. I was very impressed with that answer because at the end of the day, it doesn't. Um, but in my mind, at that moment in time, I knew right there what he was up to. He is got his eye on that throne at all costs. At all costs. Now we'll get back to that. But he takes her further down, they continue. He takes her further down into these sexual brothels, and there's a scene where they begin to make out. And I'm not gonna lie, I was very disgusted. I was praying that it would stop. It could not stop soon enough for me. There is a moment where she's kind of taunting him, like, kissing at him, kissing, 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 wanting him to take her. And thank goodness, I don't know if he came to his senses, but it seemed like he had a moment of like, I wouldn't call it clarity, maybe for once in his life, a conscious. And maybe he thought, okay, uh, this might not be wise for me to do. Now, we saw in earlier episodes that he knows that the king have people watching people in the palace because they were watching his ass. So there's no doubt that they're watching them now. So maybe that's why he retreated. I'm not sure. But he retreated, and child, all I can say is thank goodness for that, because this whole incest thing really, really turns my stomach. She goes back to her quarters. Christian, asks her if she's okay. She continues to taunt him. She invites him in her room, and they proceed to make love. So what I'm gathering from that scene, even before we go any further, is that he got her all hot and heavy. Okay, hot and heavy, little hot teenage girl, and she went back to her quarters and made love to the person she really wanted to make love to. This girl is a loose cannon at this point. She's just a teenager in heat. Um, but her and Damon have a lot more in common than I think people realize. And this shows it, this proves it. Okay, so now all hell is about to break loose. Okay, so after Rhaenyra and her knight make love, obviously there was somebody watching her that night, and Otto, the king's advisor, goes back to tell the king of the news, right? That his daughter, which I'm not gonna lie, you gotta have a lot of balls, honey, a lot of cojones, because that could have been his head right there if it was a different king. To tell the king that your daughter has been deflowered, honey. So, but he did. He told her, although he has his own motives, we know that. Um, because we saw that he was ruthless, and he would stop at nothing till he got his daughter in the king's midst, and now his grandson is, he's fighting for his grandson to become the next heir. So we know that there's no depth to which he won't go. But he has so far proven himself to be loyal to the king and means well by the king. But he tells the king, your daughter was followed, and we saw her getting it on with Damon. But that's the thing. The scene did not show them getting it on. And so it seems as if Damon stopped it in the process. But what was reported is that they got it on. Regardless, it's enough to have Rhaenyra put to death. I mean, it's a very, very serious accusation to have both of them put to death for treason. For treason. So, and then also it flashes back to a scene where Alicent, the queen, gets called to the king's room in the middle of the night, in the morning, in the early morning hour, honey, to give up that thing. And you can tell it's just a constant reminder of women's position, just really not having any power, just being a plaything to these men. Hence the Game of Thrones. And so I just had to throw that in there. So basically now things are rocking. Okay. So the king is furious. Um, they go ahead and they siege Damon. Damon is drunk, with one of his whores, his whore wife, whatever. She's not even his real wife. She's just somebody that he's been laid up with the whole time that he's been gone. They bring him back to the king. Um, and the king, this is the first time you really see some get up and rise from this king. Like I said, I don't think he's a weak king, but I do think he's a compassionate king. But not necessarily weak. But he does, in my opinion, he questions himself too much. We see that in past episodes, and he gives Damien and his daughter way too many chances. Rhaenyra has been running around acting like a spoiled teenager, and he needed to have been told her to shut up and sit down, and you're gonna do what I want you to do because you are my daughter. And it's like he doesn't have the heart to do that, which is getting them all in a lot of trouble. And the same with Damon. I would have been shut Damon's ass down a long time ago. His very existence is based on the king's um generosity. Okay. And how do you let somebody, stay around that is after your seat? I don't understand that. But anyway, they bring Damon back. He puts a knife to Damon's throat, basically threatening him, just confronting him, saying, "You did this to my daughter." Damon at that time asked the king for Rhaenyra's hand in marriage. Of course, the king is just overwrought with just disgust, and I don't blame him. Damon brings up the fact that it's nothing new that incest has been going on throughout the kingdoms for years. The Targaryens are known for incest. And, but the king brought up a very, very, very good point. This was all a plot for Damon. It's not even about Rhaenyra or his so-called love for Rhaenyra, because I really don't think that he loves her like that. I think that him and her have found commonalities. I think they have very similar personality types, but I don't think there is necessary a love between them. Oh gosh, no cut off, y'all. Hold on. But I think there is a lust for power. There's an inquisitiveness that they both share, but love, I would not call it so. He has a absolute love for the idea of becoming king, and that's about all he loves. So there's a scene where the Queen Allison asks Rhaenyra outright, is this rumor true about you and your uncle? Did you do something when Damon, when you guys went down to the city? And she said no. And so then the queen goes back to the king, and they have a discussion about it, and she says that she believes Rhaenyra. But what the king says is true and pertinent. It's not even if it whether it happens or not. It's not even really that important. What is important is the image that it could be true. The reputation of the future queen has been soiled and sullied. And that puts them at a disadvantage. It puts them in danger because if they cannot find her a suitor, that definitely puts them at a disadvantage versus other kingdoms that are able to align themselves, with allies. So in the next episode, we see that Rhaenyra is to marry her cousin, Leonard Valeris, and it's definitely a marriage of convenience. And we we'll see what happens from there. But if you guys like this, let me know. Remember to hit the like and subscribe button. We will continue these reviews until the season is over. Y'all, I'm in love with this show just like I was in love with Game of Thrones. I will be uploading more and more things not only on this show but on past seasons of Game of Thrones just to catch everybody up so we're all on the same page. Thank you. Remember to hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already done so.